you got injured, your mother would not just sit and make a plan that how to help. Mother is mother. Spontaneously, instantly, she will respond to take care of you and make sure that you are safe. If you are in danger, your mother will run, and even at the cost of her own life, she will take you safe. Education is the key to all human rights. But in many countries, who thought that poverty is the biggest impediment and poverty can not allow education for all. My dear children, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Secretary of Assembly, authors, writers, poets, eminent figures in the field of literature, young friends, sisters and brothers. First of all, I would like to congratulate you on this auspicious day of Kerala Parva, or what we call Kerala Pirvi. Is it okay? Kerala Pirvi? Yeah, little bit. And again, I would like to congratulate the organizers and contributors of this very important literature festival. During all my 45 years of fight against child slavery and demanding right to education in India and across the world, during all my arguments in India and across 140, 150 countries where I have been working for the last 30 years or so, there are certain things which were common to build those arguments. And one argument was that education is the key to all human rights. Education is enabler, equalizer, empowerer, emancipator. And when I was talking about education, because you cannot end child labor, you cannot end poverty without an education and quality education, I have been referring Kerala as an example, the model. You have shown us path, not just to the rest of India, but in many countries who thought that poverty is the biggest impediment and poverty can not allow education for all. Of course, there were issues. I know, I studied them carefully. I had discussions with my fellow laureate Amar Sen in the past and read his work, his studies and researches. But I have been always confident that if Kerala can achieve it, how it is going to transform the lives of people and how it is going to change many of those indicators related to development, rights, gender rights, and so on. Education was one of the biggest gifts you Keralites have given to the world, and particularly to India. The proof that poverty is not that hurdle. We can end poverty, we can elevate poverty, and we can elevate many of those social evils and exploitation, intergenerational exploitation, miseries and poverty by ensuring education to the poorest of the poor, to the most marginalized people. Dear friends, we live in a very complex world, compounded with several crises, conflicting challenges, conflicting priorities on one hand. On the other hand, we are so interconnected and so interdependent, we cannot solve any problem in isolation, in silo. So the paradox is that we live in a connected and interdependent world, but we also live in the same world which is so broken, so fragile, so fragile. And when we think of this inherent conflict or paradox, we think that world has never been so rich, so wealthier as it is today. We did not have so many billionaires as we have today. In almost every 3 days, a new billionaire is born globally. We have never been so advanced in technology as we are today. We never had a plethora of laws and constitutions, international treaties and bindings and conventions, promises made by the United Nations and by the respective governments, member countries, for the poor people, for the children, for the women, for the marginalized. So in that sense, we have everything. We have globalized economy, data, information, knowledge, production, supply, consumption, so many things. But even we are facing very, very serious, rather I would say the cruel inequality between the countries, between the people in the countries. Think of a situation that America or Europe cannot involve children as child laborers in their own country. It is illegal. But I can give you one example that the world cannot live without the blue chips, without the elements, the minerals used in your mobile phones, computers, everything. Cobalt, nickel, cobalt in particular. I have come across and I have met many young children who are working in most dangerous mines in sub-Saharan Africa to dig out that mineral. And these companies are making huge money out of it. These companies who claim that they are advancing green world, green technologies. This thing which is used in the batteries of EV cars, these electric vehicles, they run on the fundamental, the basic element, and that is cobalt. There are so many examples of this paradox which I was just mentioning in the beginning. there is a serious lack of moral compass. There is a serious lack of moral accountability and mutual responsibility. And that is such a growing evil, I would say, or growing illness, that today we are facing Russian-Ukrainian situation, which is not yet over, and then the Hamas-Israel problem. Is there any moral authority in the country, in the world, in any country? Is there any moral leadership in the United Nations itself which is heard seriously by any conflicting country in the world? The United Nations agencies are pleading. Many of them are not even allowed to enter to these places where the children are trapped or kidnapped or whatever happening with them. Because there is no moral sense of accountability. And therefore, I strongly feel that when we globalized everything, this is the time to globalize compassion. Compassion in all walks of life, compassion in every field. But let me underline here that when I talk of compassion, I am not talking of preaching. There is no dearth of preachers. You switch on your TV and you will see the face of those preachers. They can preach you love, compassion, humanity, honesty, truthfulness, yoga, whatnot, everything. And you can see their face maybe 26 or 27 hours in one day. All the time they are there to preach. So sometimes these words become hollow. They lose their content when they are used in this way by people who never practice them. Compassion is one of them. So I'm not talking about the compassion which could be preached or which should be preached. Compassion is not a soft emotion either. Neither it's a value or virtue. We can use it as a value or virtue, but essentially it is an innate property, biological, neurological property, exists in every human being. We are born with that. It is scientifically proven fact now that in the brain, in the anterior insular cortex, different things happen. And one of the things, the molecular and biochemical, bioneurological changes occur in a small place which has combination of care, love, but excitement, courage, and action. A desperation to take action against or for certain things. I am referring it just to tell you, underline you that when I talk of compassion in literature or compassion in politics or society, it is not a matter of preaching. It is something which is already there in each one of us. We are born with. Think of your mother. When you were a child and you were hit with something in the home, you got injured, your mother would not just sit and make a plan that how to help you. Mother is mother. Spontaneously, instantly, she will respond to take care of you and make sure that you are safe. If you are in danger, your mother will run, and even at the cost of her own life, she will take you safe. These studies have been conducted in neuroscience now and epigenetics both, and found that yes, that relationship which we know as mother's love or care, the root, the real spark is compassion. So compassion is not mercy. Compassion is not kindness. Compassion is not empathy either, or sympathy. Compassion is, in my simple words, selfless drive to solve others' problem. Selfless action to solve others' problem. And a problem solver cannot live with soft or tender emotions, which you can find in other things like in mercy, in kindness, and so on. Empathy also. So compassion is the feeling of sufferings and problems of others, including planet, not just human beings. Feeling the suffering of others as your own suffering with a strong drive to take action to end that suffering. And therefore, in many occasions when I say that, think of Jesus Christ, think of Abraham, think of Hazrat Muhammad Saf or Buddha or Mahavir, think of Guru Nanak Dev, think of many of those great leaders, great human beings, we call them prophet. But when they felt the suffering of other people, the exploitation, the injustice, the cruelty in their surroundings, they did not sit quiet. They took initiative in making sure that how to alleviate that suffering. They have gone in one path. But I have visited and I have met number of people who had worked with Fidel Castro. I went to his home. I spent a day in the school which he has built as one of his love. So I sat and talked to those people who worked with him, some of the elderly people, the professors or teachers and so on. And then I found that he was so compassionate about his own people, and his journey began with feeling deeply the suffering of others who were exploited, though they were hard workers in their own way, the working class, peasants and so on. So was with other leaders. Che Guevara. I had a chance to sit in that coffee house where Che Guevara used to sit and had coffee and try to learn. Nobody has seen, no, I did not meet anybody who has any interaction with him. But even then, people have stories to tell. So I was listening to those stories that how good he was he was good for other people. They call it kind, but I call that he was compassionate, because he could not stop when he saw all these sufferings and all these injustices and exploitation, inequalities around him. So what an interesting thing that they have gone in a different path, Buddha or Jesus has gone in a different path. But what was the initial spark? If I tried to link it with my statement based on neurology and epigenetics, it is basically the spark of compassion. The drive to take action to end the suffering, problems of other people and all the social movements. And then I started observing my journey in freeing over 120,000 children, not directly by me, but tens of thousands by me directly, and then together with my friends or my colleagues and activists. I lost two of my colleagues. One was shot dead, one was beaten to death by mafias, the landlords, the slave masters, and one also passed away. I had injuries and scars in all my body, almost everywhere. Because these people who are selling and buying young children stealing children, trafficking them, and selling in brothels or factories and mines. They are not ordinary people. They are so well connected with authorities, political and social authorities. So I started thinking that after giving up my career as electrical engineer, and I taught in the university, the transformer design, what was my motivation? What was my spark? And then I realized that it was essentially compassion. It was not religious at all. I can't say it was spiritual in those terms. People can say. But it was essentially my disagreement with slavery of children, with exploitation, injustice children were facing in our country or anywhere in the world. So I started thinking that let us go back to the real essence of compassion, not the essence which is preached as a soft human value, but as an innate quality of being a human being to fight against wrongs. That comes from compassion. And we see in the history how the revolutions, social transformations, even the religions spread across the world. Because people have felt connectedness and sense of responsibility. And that sense of responsibility was the moral responsibility. The society and civilization grew with a sense of responsibility. And evolutionary psychologists have also studied deeply that how reciprocal altruism millions of years ago, lakhs of years ago, have built our brain where we started feeling that if somebody is somehow helping, supporting, contributing in our life, then how we reciprocate it. That is the inherent psychological thing in the evolution psychology. So when we look at many of these social reformation movements, when we look at the freedom struggles, including the freedom struggle in India, the literature which had, in addition to nationalistic flavor, in addition to the quest for freedom, independence, etc., there was a deep sense of responsibility to each other, and there was a deep wire which is running inside, like the Premchand in North India, like Rabindranath Tagore, like Bankim Chand. They have touched the human chord very deeply, but that deep touch was not just the expression of those tender emotions which have been put on the paper through the words, but it also had a deeper sense that how humanity works and grows deeply. Literature has played an important role. Here in Kerala, there are so many examples. I read something from Muhammad Basir Sahab. I read something from Kurup. I read something from one of the ladies, I forgot the name, Sunanda. Huh? Sunanda, yeah, Sunanda Kumari. So if you read their literature, then you will find that this deeper human connect was not simply the tender issues, but somehow it leads to think that how we can make a better society, how can build a better society on the basis of those tender emotions which could be converted into some decision making. So literature had played and can play important role. I am here to say to you that when you are writing, many of you write things, then if we are able to differentiate that mercy will keep status quo, though it's a great human trait, but if we keep Giving something to someone, your hand will always be upper hand and somebody who is getting from you will be lower hand. Benevolence would not work. Good that some people are having that benevolence. But when we talk of justice, when we talk of equality, how you can build the equality when you don't meet and shake your hands as equal human beings and standing on the equal footage? And that's why compassion works. Mercy would not work. Kindness would not work. Benevolence would not work. Because they, as I said, being good human traits, they are not going to question the reasons why someone is so depressed, poor, exploited, facing all these problems. But compassion will lead you to finding the solutions, going inside the problems, structural and systematic issues. Because many of these sufferings are caused due to systematic and institutional and systemic injustices which are existing there for ages, for centuries. So we have to go back to dig out the compassion, as many of the authors who are sitting here, who will listen in the future. My appeal is that try to find out that how this tender-looking cord of connecting through deep emotions with each other will lead eventually to the problem solving, and the problems may lie in the system. We have so many issues. I will just sum up with a simple thing, a story, real story. Many years ago, I freed a boy who was born and grew up in intergenerational slavery. His father borrowed some money from his employer in working in stone quarries, and then the children were born and started working in the same way. So there were 3 brothers whom we physically liberated. I'm talking about one of them. That time he was 6-7 years old. So he was given a job to break stones in smaller pieces, whatever he could do, or at least hold those stones and then load in the baskets, and somebody will take the basket to the trucks. So at least some work has been done. But there is no question of education. That was in Rajasthan. And then, after freeing these boys, we brought him to our Rehabilitation, Education and Leadership Building Center. We have 3 centers: Balashram, Balikashram and Mukti Ashram. When we set up these centers, when we used to free the children and realize that they should be empowered, they should be educated, they should be given some skills and good life as others do, I was never driven by the conventional charity mindset or mercy or kindness mindset. I always believe that adults have made sins for ages. Children have never been responsible for these injustices, intergenerational slavery, poverty, anything, even wars today. I was being interviewed online this afternoon by CNN International, and I said the same thing, that the children have never been responsible for any war, but they are the worst sufferers, they are the worst victims of war. So is the case of poverty and other miseries. So that boy was very, very good in studies. His dream was to become an advocate, a lawyer. We sent him to a law college. He passed out. And then 3-4 years ago, just in the beginning of Corona pandemic, he got his certificate or license. So one evening, now he is practicing in Delhi High Court and Delhi local court. So he studied in Delhi also. His name is Amal Lal. So Amal Lal one day came to me and my wife, and he was overwhelmed with joy, and he was in tears. He could not say anything. He touched and held our feet. And so I smiled and I said that it looks that you might have fallen in love with a girl and finally you decided to marry, and today you are going to announce the name of the girl. And you come to me because I have to give permission, or my wife has to give permission, and finally we have to do all the arrangements for your marriage. He said, no, Bhai Sahab, they call me Bhai Sahab. Then he told the story. This was his first day of taking a new challenge. When he was entering inside the courtroom, on the way he saw a 15-year-old girl or 14-year-old girl was sitting and crying. Her father was sitting there, and some policemen and few lawyers were threatening them for something. So when Amalal saw from the distance, he stopped there, and then he looked into tried to listen. And Amalal is a tiny boy. He is, I think, less than 5 feet or 5 feet, hardly. So these people said, "Who are you?" And he contested that, "Look, I am a lawyer. I am wearing black coat and so on, tie." They said, "Go away." Then he said that I work with Kailash Satyarthi's foundation. So then they felt threatened. So they dispersed here and there, and the boy had a chance to sit and talk to the father and the daughter. The father told that 6 months ago or so, this girl, beautiful girl, was raped by a police officer in a slum. And since then, FIR was not registered for several months. Somehow, because the medical reports were very clear, luckily the doctors must be genuine or honest, so the report was lodged. But then these people, their lawyers and the policemen, were pressurizing father and the girl, and they already came in the pressure. They have signed on the affidavit that we are ready to withdraw the case because the consequences would have been even uglier. Amalal listened this story. The father said that, "I don't want your help." The father didn't know who Kailash Satyarthi is, so he said, I don't know. Who are you? Why are you helping me? He said that we are not going to charge any money. We are there. And then he turned to the girl and said that, "Look, this is my story. I was liberated from these kind of situations. I saw the rape and sexual abuse of many of my co-workers and girls like sisters, and you are also my sister. Tell, if your brother asked you that he wanted to fight for your justice, would you do? Would you agree?" The boy was very straight and honest. The girl could feel and told her father that, "Look, I believe my brother. What he says, I agree." Then 3 of them had to rush to the court because these people had already took the signatures from the girl and the father. And then Amalal stood in front of the court, and then he pleaded. He said that, "I also have this wakalatnama or whatever, and then I will contest." So the judge looked at him, but he said that, "I am ready to contest." Judge could not understand because judge might have been informed by these people that the case is being withdrawn. So finally judge had to give a next date, but this affidavit and the wakalatnama was accepted by the judge, and the case began from that day. So Amalal was highly motivated and overwhelmed with this. This story was published in newspapers. somebody has written this story in detail. This story became the part of book and couple of other books. And then it motivated so many young people, not only from his college, but from other law colleges. It has motivated number of lawyers in Delhi, Patiala House Court, and they approached my colleagues that we are so impressed when we read these things in the newspaper, in magazines or in the book, in two different books. So they are coming pro bono to help in such cases. So when the story came out through the book and through other literature, the story of compassion, the real compassion, which brings courage, which brings drive, which brings action, and that also enlarged circle of compassion that has its own ripple effect. And we have seen so many ripple effects in our work and in our life. So once again, while thanking now Honorable Speaker has also joined in your leadership, this festival is taking place, and it is really very impressive. I am not a writer, but I have written several books in between. Something comes to my mind, and then I keep on fighting with myself, and sometimes I have to fight with these paradoxes and these contradictions around us, and a lot of positivity, a lot of joy, a lot of beauty in the world. Then I tried to put them down in paper. So we will be talking on my book a little later. But I had no experience in going to lit festivals, as I have never done my PhD in my life. But nowadays my office cannot accept all the offers when the universities in India and many parts of the world invite me to give the degree of PhD or DLit. So I've got so many degrees. Well, by the time I go, and sometimes they send by post. So I laugh at me that I could never ever do my PhD. I am not that man who could do DLit or whatever, LLD, but they keep on going honorary degrees. So is the case that I am not an author in those definitions, but I am here to speak in front of all of you. In summing up, I tell you a story. When I was invited to give my Nobel acceptance speech in Oslo, I was quite overwhelmed. I'm thinking of children, their parents, how they have been exploited in all their life and enslaved and whatnot, every cruelty they had to face. And I was talking about the greatness of my country, of great rishis, munis, oliyas, and so on, in all religions and all walks of life, plurality and all the great values the idea of India is born and has lived with. So all those things were coming to my mind, and I lost my speaking notes or my written speech, which was necessary for so many things, because a lot of PhDs are done not only on the speech, but sometimes on one line or two lines of the Nobel acceptance speeches. So the Nobel committee has insisted that I have to submit a speech. So I forgot some papers. So a story came to my mind. I will finish with that. There was a heavy fire broken out in jungle. All animals, including King Lion, were running fast, leaving the jungle, rushing for a safer place. Lion noticed that there was a tiny hummingbird flying straight towards the flames. Surprisingly, he shouted, "What are you doing, committing suicide?" Bird replied, "Sir, I was born and grew up here. I cannot leave this jungle like that. I am going to extinguish this fire." More surprisingly, Lion asked, "How come? How can you do?" And she replied, "Sir, look at my beak. I am carrying a drop of water. I am carrying a drop of my water." She said, "I am doing my bit." This is a story I read in my childhood. So when I forgot to speak the theoretical things, I said that this is my life. And the life of everyone is possible like this, because the tiny hummingbirds recite each one of you. When you feel the suffering of others as your own suffering, with a strong drive, it could be a plant, it could be a river, it could be a mountain, it could be an animal, it could be a human being, it could be your own people, it could be unknown people, stranger. When you feel the problem, suffering, exploitation of others as your own, with a strong drive and start thinking, become desperate to take action to end that suffering, that is because of your hummingbird inside you. But so many things are pressing the hummingbird. So many layers are put on that hummingbird to stop. But I just tell you that whenever you feel like that, this is the spark of compassion. That is your hummingbird. Do your bit for betterment of humanity. If you really believe in humanity, this is the time you must act, because humanity needs people who believe in humanity. It is not talk of humanity, it is the deep belief, deep dream that we have to protect humanity, which is in danger today. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
The joys and freedom of millions of children started with just one feeling. What if the child slave Sabo was my daughter? Sabo, who was about to be sold to a brothel. Sabo, whose desperate father lay in a heap at my feet. Perhaps it all started with a spark of compassion, and today become a worldwide movement. I believe that each one of us is born with two natural gifts: consciousness and compassion. Both are the core reasons of our being. When we feel the suffering of others as our own suffering, with a strong drive to take action, that is compassion. God is not so meager that He has blessed us with only a little of compassion, which we have confined to our families and friends. We need to go beyond that. All that is required is to enlarge our circle of compassion. A touch of compassion is what makes each of us a problem solver, an innovator who is ready to accept all challenges and solve them. When we work towards making our world a better place, each one of us becomes a compassionate leader. In fact, all world religions and movements were born out of compassion. I stand with 8 billion people because the world is my family. In this age of interconnectedness, Are we really connected with each other? Compassion is the greatest form of connectedness and love. There is no curse bigger than being alone. Loneliness is frightening. If you are connected, you are fearless. And we are the safest if we feel like a part of our global family.
Where are the mothers of the children?
They've been taken back.
I am not a teacher or a preacher of compassion. I have made it a way of life. I truly believe that every solution lies in compassion in action. So, my dear friends, as we globalize markets, resources, and data, I urge you all to globalize compassion. Sangachadvam samvadadvam sambo manansi janatam deva bhagam yatha purve sanjananam upasate. We shall overcome one day.